So Ryan, thank you so much for participating in our community of practice page on YouTube. You are an essential leader, and you will be just another golden puzzle piece, or the giant puzzle piece that Setsi is creating to really amplify the work of leaders like yourself. So on behalf of Setsi, we thank you so much for today. We begin all things by acknowledging the original stewards of the various lands that we are on. We also acknowledge our ancestors. We acknowledge all those who toiled without compassion or compensation. We acknowledge our elders and community stalwarts whose shoulders we stand on as we build, share, learn for our collective liberation and sovereignty. So if you can please do us the honors by introducing yourself to our listeners and viewers and tell us about your remarkable work.
Thank you very much. My name is Ryan Hollinrake. I'm the Executive Director of Access Community Capital Fund. Access Community Capital Fund has been around now since 1999, believe it or not. Originally started as a very small community organization to help small businesses, and we've grown into so much more. So Access has a number of programs that helps entrepreneurs, newcomers, individuals who need a little bit of extra assistance in starting their small business or getting funding for the small business. We have kind of a little mantra at Access that we never say no, but we'll get you to a yes. Through our programs, we have the Women's Business Accelerator, which is a program to lift up newcomer women that helps teach them how to start their own business, everything from A to Z on getting started. We have the SBA, which is the Small Business Accelerator, which is the same, but for all Canadians, newcomers and native born alike. We have the Small Business Loans Program, which is a small business loan program, which is for individuals who can't necessarily access traditional funding through banks. And whereas we help them get through the small business loan program and facilitate a loan through a financial institution and make it a little bit easier for small business loans. And then as well, we have our newest program, which is the WBL program, which I'm super, super proud of because it's been a long time in the making. And this is the Women's Business Launch Program. So this is like the graduates from the WBA and the SBA. If you're a woman and you want a little bit of extra help, or you've already launched a business and you need a little bit of extra support, that's what this program is there to help. And all of our programs are free to participants, and they help facilitate a little bit of growth and a little bit of kind of self-utilization and self-individualization in terms of taking control of your own future and not being reliant on somebody else for your business to launch. And that is the Coles Notes version of it. We have been back and forth. So I actually joined the team at Access in 2018, and was the executive director for 3 years through COVID. And then I ventured out on my own, took 2 years away from Access to explore some of my own entrepreneurial dreams. So you got to walk the walk and talk the talk. And then I joined the team back here in December of 2023 to help kind of usher Access into its next phase.
Wow, absolutely remarkable. I mean, we see the need for sure of newcomers, women who are so entrepreneurial spirit, doing traveling. I've lived in Ghana, and so you see that entrepreneurial spirit all the time. So it's within them wherever they go. So that's remarkable. Can you articulate your mission and vision for us?
You're asking me. I always forget the mission and vision. So I'm gonna have to read it because it has changed so many times. But just the language that we tend to use for it. But Access is a nonprofit organization dedicated to fostering inclusive economies by providing access to financial resources and support. Our mission is to create economic opportunities by removing barriers to entrepreneurship through financing, education, and mentorship. And our vision is our commitment to building a society where everybody has access to resources that they need to achieve their financial and entrepreneurial goals.
That's it in a nutshell, right?
That is it in a nutshell. But we're so much more, and we grow and learn based on our community. Whereas like the WBL program, the Women's Business Launch Program, that was born from just looking at the data over the last 10 years. We took a real deep dive into the data in it would have been mid 2020 through the pandemic, where we're really kind of analyzing and looking at how we do things and how we want to do things in the future, and what programs we could best utilize and expand upon. And by just looking at the data over the last 10 years, a lot of really glaring things stood out. And that was that primarily most of our clients, 78%, were women. And you don't really see that when you just look at one program, but when you look at all the data holistically of all the programs, it starts to really shine a light on it. Not only that, but the Black community is primarily supported through the work that we do. 82% of our clients at that point were from the Black or Brown community. So we look at, we're actually going to release our newest impact report in the next month, and we've taken just the last 5 years to have a little bit different of a view, but we've really driven the data down to country of origin, gender identification, and we're really looking at how we utilize that not only to celebrate the work that we've done, but also to help us design for the next step. Like, what does our community require more? Do they require more education programs? Do they require more access to loans? What kind of expertise do they need? And we really utilize all of that data in order to facilitate a better program for our clients, because that's why we exist.
Exactly. That's amazing. High percentage, of women of color and of support. So, and we see that there's definitely a gap in that as well. So what inspires you about your current work?
Yeah, I would say that it's the clients that we service, and that we help facilitate. Seeing kind of somebody with a dream, being able to see that from end to end to fruition. I've been in the nonprofit industry for now over 16 years. I originally came into the nonprofit industry doing international development, women's rights, gender equality, and that was kind of something I wanted to explore, and I only planned on doing it for a year. Year to 3 years, I gave myself max. I was in my early 30s, and I thought, okay, this is what I want to do. I left my career in finance and came into the nonprofit sector. I fell in love with the sector and in love with the mission, and I've done everything from international development to human rights to working with the neurodiverse community. But with access, it's so much different, because a lot of times when you're working internationally or working with some of these other organizations, you don't actually get to interact on unless you're on the ground and traveling around the world. You don't get to interact with your clients on a daily basis. But at Access, we do. We do with all of our programs that we've created, and really seeing the impact that has on the lives, and talking to clients that have, some of our older clients, and I don't mean in age, but ones that were with us, in 2017 or 2016, and following up with them 4 years later and 5 years later, and seeing the overall impact. It's not only individual impact that we have, it's community impact, because that individual started a business and now they employ 10 people, and those 10 people now have aspirations of their own, and they're going out. The community that they're based in, if it's a brick and mortar shop or even something that has further impacts on the communities, you know, then it has further arching implications. We had one client that actually started their own microfinancing organization after going through our program, getting 2 loans with us and furthering their own business. They went out and started. So now they're furthering impacting other individuals like they were impacted through Access. So seeing those stories and kind of weaving that big tapestry together is a pretty amazing thing when you think about, it was a $5,000 loan and a 2-month program that they walked through, and now they're impacting multiple lives and individuals in the community. And I think we talk about Canada being multicultural and the backbone of Canada, and we see a lot of noise now, and I'm just going to keep it very positive. We see a lot of noise now, but at the end of the day, that's what we're about, is if we can drive things back to community and really lifting each other up by having access to programs like this and seeing the impacts longer term from one program that is there to support individuals and communities to kind of take control of their own future. I think that would help so many cities and provinces and the country as a whole, because I mean, that's what we were about. Like I said, Access was founded in 1999. It was founded in the Riverdale community. Originally, that community was a huge manufacturing community, and what had happened was a lot of the companies had closed down. The manufacturing had left that community, but a lot of the small businesses that exist in that community that supported those corporations and factories were really struggling because now people are moving away. They don't have the lunch crowd, or they don't have the people, all these factory workers in their community anymore. And so a bunch of local business owners got together, pooled their money, and said, how do we help each other? And how do we lift each other out of this? And that's how Access was born. Of course, we've grown into so much more, but that's the fundamental basis on it, is how does the community help the community? And that's what we want to be known as.
Exactly. The whole purpose of social impact is about changing communities for the good, right? And really
Hmm.
setting precedents in all aspects of life, having a decent and equitable source of life, a good
Hmm.
source of life for all, right? So that's amazing.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so on the flip side, what challenges and barriers have you faced, and how did you work to overcome them?
Hmm. I think probably the biggest challenge for us was, staying away from mission drift. I know it's you hear a lot of needs, and but remaining focused in our programs, and that's where we go back to the data and we look at the community that we service, and that's how we navigate away from that and kind of not slipping into that. But the biggest challenge overall is funding. The landscape has changed a lot in Canada. It started probably in the 2012, and people don't realize this, but when the government changed its general funding model, the Department of Foreign Affairs merged with another organization that used to provide a lot of funding for nonprofits. That was back in 2012, and that dismantled a lot of primary funding for charitable organizations. And then the economy, of course, has massive impact and implications. We went through a major pandemic, and we're very, very fortunate that we actually grew during the pandemic because we were able to pivot very quickly, and we had amazing supporters and a great community of funders that were able to increase funding where they could, get funding in a little bit sooner than they normally would. But we did a lot of kind of backpedaling and preparation for to prepare for the oncoming funding hitch, if you will. But overall, the economy hasn't been favorable for charities, and and I know out of anybody that it's not easy for people to give. It's not. I mean, that's why we don't put a lot of effort into individual giving, just because we think that the corporations and government should be the ones that are funding it, but that of course the funding models have changed so much with the government. So the biggest challenge we have is that how we get around it. We look at alternate ways of doing fundraising. So I have my kind of go-tos, and then I have my ways of looking at things differently, and utilizing different funding models and different strategies for grant development. But at the end of the day, we'll be okay. Our programs are quite light on the cost side, because we rely heavily on volunteers. And that strategy has served us very well, and helped us kind of push forward. Now, if we want to grow, of course, we're going to have to increase our funding, because the more people we service, the more resources we require internally in order to lift that up and support those programs. But that's a small challenge to get over, but it's my job to do that, and I'm happy to do it, and that's why I'm here. So
That's it. That's exactly it. Wow. Well, I'm gonna let people, hopefully you took notes and just really absorbing, the playing field right now in the
mhm.
nonprofit space, right? So it's good to know. It's good to get updates each chapter of this whole dynamic, right? How it
Absolutely.
was
It's been
to how it is now, so people moving forward into the nonprofit space can decide accordingly.
mhm. It's been tough. I mean, I think I used to sit on a group of about 30 executive directors, and we'd meet monthly. And during the first 2 years of the pandemic, I'd say 20% of them dropped off because their organizations folded up, or just couldn't sustain them anymore, which is it's very tough. And I felt fortunate that we were at a very good place, but it took a lot of hard work to get there. And the thing about Access is we have such an amazing team. And the staff are all willing to kind of head down, do what they need to do, support our community. We did a lot of things. For me, the number one thing looking at a cash crunch situation was, how do we not let it impact our clients? And so even for our small loans, we went to bat with them to the bank. We went to the bank preemptively and said, you know what? We know that things are going to be tough for people. Can we do extensions on interest only payments for the next 6 months, just until we see where the economy goes? And the bank was like, that's a really good idea. Yeah, of course we'll support that. And they automatically, put a pause on loan payments, in order to help facilitate and help people get through that, because a lot of people were out of work, right? A lot of people were going to the government and having to get support through, the COVID. I don't even remember what it was called. It was, so prevalent at the time, through those payments. And a lot of people were, laid off, and a lot of people just didn't have the income coming in. So we were like, okay, how do we get ahead of this before it starts to impact, and have a detrimental impact on our clients? So we did that in advance. And that was a lot of that was staff just really kind of looking at it and analyzing and saying, how do we get it ahead of this? And I feel very fortunate to not only have served 3 years at Access then, but to be back now. And I was so happy to see that all the staff that was there when I left was still there, because it makes my life easier. And they're just they're amazing individuals. So I'm very
Right, right.
fortunate.
Well, thank goodness for Access and yourself for sure. Um, yeah, you feel like a nice warm fuzzy pillow or something to help in those hard times, right?
Well, thank
So,
you.
no problem. Do you have a set of key priorities in your work right now?
Yes. So the WBL was one priority, launching that. So we just piloted it this year, so we're going to expand on that. Ultimately, our number one priority is to grow Access, and grow the impacts that we have for our clients. So currently, we service the GTA, and surrounding areas. So GTA, Hamilton, Burlington, Oakville, Etobicoke, and Markham, Oshawa, Pickering, that type of thing. We want to expand at least out to a broader area in Ontario. The great thing is all of our programs are remote, so we've kept that. We've switched to remote during COVID, because of necessity. But what we found is that it actually removes a lot of barriers for our clients, and the communities that we service, because they don't have to get either childcare, especially the women. They don't have to travel. They don't have the burden of having transit or parking fees or anything like that. All they need is a computer at home and a quiet space, and they can participate in the programs. They don't have to worry about taking time off work. So we remained, and any of our new programs continue to be remote. That way we can impact more individuals without actually impacting their pocketbook or creating any further strain or burden on them. So because they're remote, we could service anybody in all of Canada if we wanted to. It's just time zones you have to get over. So right now we're looking at least expanding outside of or in Ontario, so that we can impact more individuals and we can really expand on our programs. Of course, some of our big goals are expanding our volunteers. We do have an amazing, and like, let me be honest. I worked, like I said, in the nonprofit industry for 16 plus years. I have never, ever, ever had an organization that I've worked with that has this amazing group of volunteers. We have over 100 volunteers. They are our facilitators. They are our mentors. They are our loan review committee. These folks dedicate a lot of time and energy into helping our community and really making our programs what they were. We couldn't do it without them, and I'm very fortunate. So maintaining and growing our volunteer base is always great. And the thing is our volunteers are experts in their field. So when we're teaching our clients about um, registering their business. Or our volunteer knows what they're talking about because that's their field. Or we're talking about banking, our volunteers are bankers. And so that's what we're talking about. We're talking about marketing, our volunteers are marketers. And so they know what they're talking about. So our programs are truly expert based and because of the volunteers. So that is definitely one of our priorities. And then just financial stability for access so that we don't have to kind of roll back. And part of that is growing, not our operational fund. Of course, we always want to grow that. So if you want to donate, please do. But our loan guarantee fund, we need more investors into our loan guarantee fund. And this is a simple way of individuals actually investing in access and with very little risk to no risk because they can get their money back in 5 years with a little bit of interest on the top of that. And then with that money, they're actually supporting entrepreneurs in getting funding. And that is what we call as our loan guarantee fund. So that's the money that we use not to loan people, but to secure the loan with the bank that loans the people the funds. And we need to grow that because the demand is increasing, not only for loan size, because we traditionally used to only do $5,000 loans. Now we're up to 10,000. And we'd like to grow that amount even more because it's more expensive now to open a business than it used to be. But also we have a bigger demand for individuals coming through our programs, graduating from our programs that now want to go out and get a loan. If we cap out our loan guarantee fund, then we can't support any more loans and we have to pause that. So we don't want to get to that space. So currently we're reworking our model. So it is actually paused temporarily, but that's just because we're reworking how we're actually going to facilitate that model. And then once we start back up, we want to grow that fund even more so that we can support more and more loans. So those are our biggest priorities right now.
Yeah, for sure. Wow, 100 volunteers. That's really impressive. And supportive, and that's what's needed, especially like you're saying, you service new new immigrant women who come in that's looking to get into their own business, and you're really guiding them through. So that's amazing. And when we're done here, I'll again remind you about this solidarity working group that we have, because you'll get some really team players when you come to our meeting. So off camera,
Okay, wonderful. I'm looking forward to it now.
Yeah. And okay, so how do you feel about the future of social impact in Canada?
I think we have a long way to go. I think as Canadians, whether you were born here or you're a newcomer here, I think that I quite often we get too caught up in our own world to